Welcome to another edition of Real Kyper and Bourne. As we go into day 2 of our Swedish edition of the Toronto Maple Leaf Hour on our show, Nick Kypreos, Justin Bourne, Sammy McKee, Derek Brandeo, and Jen Rolnick here for the next 2 hours.
Feeling more like Puerto Rico than Sweden in here.
So, do you think there's any chance at all the maintenance guy in this Rogers building watches or listens to our show?
This is the most direct avenue we have to get to him.
This is it. Okay? If by chance you are listening, you listen to me closely, my friend. Okay? Unless you're going to bust through that door in the next 30 seconds with a tray of iced teas, turn down the heat.
I'm going to not wear a wool sweater tomorrow.
We're going to be shucking down here. It'll be the shirtless hour in the second half of the show today.
I'd like to see you doing that, not me.
I'm drawing a blank. Who's that actor that it's like, listen to me very carefully?
Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
I'm getting Liam in here. Okay?
Yeah, taken. Good move.
You listen to me very carefully here.
A specific set of skills,
Got a
right?
very-
Yes. You got a certain set of skills that we will use if you're not by a thermometer in the next 10 seconds.
I didn't tell you I was going to ask you guys this, but I was watching some hoops last night. I was watching the LA Clippers, who are a disaster. They're now 0-6 in the James Harden era, I think. 0-5, 0-6. The Sixers are, I think, 6-1 or 7-1 since they traded him. What is the best example of a hockey trade that has just been like everyone knew it was going to be a disaster? They made the trade, and it's immediately a disaster. Like it's just I can't wrap my mind around like another cross-sport parallel of how bad this is.
You can't ask me that. I was with you for an hour and a half upstairs. I'm supposed to just come off the top of my head.
I can't get your attention up there. I want to get your attention here.
I think the best you can do is looking for like addition by subtraction, where you're like, they're just better for not using that guy that much.
Yeah.
And in the last game, Bobby McMahon played
for
Ryan Reeves.
So you're asking what NHL trade over the course of history has where you knew that it was no good?
Yes.
For one team.
Yeah, and really good for the other team. Yeah. You don't have to.
Well,
right? You can come back
Did
to it
anyone
later.
like the Kadri trade before it happened?
Now I'm thinking about Jonathan Huberdeau in Calgary, but no one saw him going from 115 points down to 50. So
Kadri win is actually the answer.
But that's how it's kind of shaped up right now.
Yeah.
I like Kadri.
Because he was Colorado. Perfect
everyone knew
everyone
it was a bad trade the minute they made it. No one really liked Barry, Kerfoot. And then, Anyways, I was just watching, and the Clippers suck so bad. They got the crap beat out of them by my favorite team to watch, the Nuggets.
You know what I wanted to bring up yesterday that I totally forgot? And it's like the association to hockey for me. I was watching Monday Night Football, the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, man.
Okay? And where it's the last play of the game.
Oh, my God.
There's a field goal missed, and it looks like the Buffalo Bills dodge a huge bullet, and they get called for too many men on the field.
Could you imagine if that happened to the Toronto Maple Leafs in some way?
I'm just, my first thought is coach.
Immediately.
And they fired the offensive coordinator. I'm like, where's the defensive guy in all of this?
Well, the special teams coordinator.
Like this to me was the ultimate too many men on the ice.
Yeah.
And that falls on coaches.
Yeah.
And I know you.
Yeah.
You're like, nah, where's the player's responsibility in that?
Figure it out. Yes.
And the Leafs have done it a ton this year with too many men on the ice. I think they've had 3 or 4 of them already this year.
5. I think they're second in the NHL. Well, maybe it's not 5. I think they're second in the NHL.
So you're telling me now, as you watch Denver march up the field,
I can't speak to that.
You can't have 1 or 2 coaches going up to his players and saying, hey, listen.
Oh, yeah.
Let's be ready here, everybody.
But it's not on the fly. That's like they have time between plays. Like, you're on the fly. You tell the guys.
I think it's a hard parallel to draw, though, between football and hockey, because in this scenario, the goal would have been scored. If there's 6 guys on the ice, is that reviewable? Like, if they score an overtime winner in the playoffs and there's 6 guys on the ice and the refs don't catch it, is that reviewable? can you flip that back?
Surely.
With this, it's like, oh, they saw it. The play can still happen, but they throw the flag and they take it off the board. It's kind of a different thing. But yeah, man, Bills suck, and that happened to the Rough Riders in the Grey Cup a few years ago when they had too many men on the field. It cost them the Grey Cup.
Anyways,
Anyways.
I like a lot of people probably lost a little bit of money.
Yeah.
On Monday on the Bills.
That would be frustrating.
Okay, the Toronto Maple Leafs, it looks like the lineup's been shaped out, getting to some hard practices again as they get ready for Friday's tilt, 2 p.m. Eastern time against the Detroit Red Wings. And it looks like right now that Ryan Reeves and John Klingberg will be on the outside, at least to start their 2 games in Sweden.
Yeah. Also, no questions or no comments today on the goaltending situation for this weekend and how they're going to handle that. So
Okay.
I could put that to you two guys.
So before we do, let's go to Sheldon Keefe for our first Kippers Clipper on practice.
Yeah, it seems to be the group's had a good night of sleep, and that goes a long way. Certainly got a lot more out of them today than I felt we could yesterday, both in terms of meetings and our time spent on the ice. So that's positive, and we have what I was told coming here is a mandatory off day tomorrow, and we'll get back with a morning skate on Friday and get ready to play. But today was a good step.
What I was told is a mandatory off day. Is that like the PA when you travel that far, you got to get a day off, or his
No.
I don't know a lot.
No, this would be the Leafs in control of all of that.
Yeah, and saying it's a mandatory off day.
Yeah,
That's crazy to me.
If you're the coach, you imagine like some old school coach, if he told like, I don't know, Pat Burns or something like, hey, it's mandatory off day, he'd be like, that's my call. That's not your call.
But you don't think you finally get these guys, you skate them once they get off the plane. You have a good night's sleep last night.
The world's changed for a lot of these clubs led by the Toronto Maple Leafs because they've got all this extra money to go out there and build departments. And one of them, of course, is it's sleeping habits. If that's the thought process, and you've hired people and that's their full-time job, then that's what they're told, then that's what you got to follow.
When I was with the organization, the first thing drafted players got, one of the first pieces of material was a book called Sleep to Win. That was like Rich Rotenberg, who's now the Leafs guy. He was the Marlies guy at the time. The first thing he got, a book. And I remember the guys complaining because they had to read something. They were junior hockey players, and you think I'm joking, but they were like, you got to read this. It's 58 pages. And it was like,
what happened in the good old days when they gave you a pin?
Congrats, you're a Leaf. Yeah. Don't read the book.
No, I think they could probably handle a light skate tomorrow.
Yeah, probably be okay.
I mean, what time is it here now? So we're heading to 10 p.m. over there right now. Could imagine that with an off day tomorrow.
Yeah.
The evening.
Yeah, you're probably not helping your team at all.
I would say at this very moment in Stockholm could be getting quite fun.
Wish we had a lot of alcohol content meters with all players. The question for you, Kip. Sorry, you were saying something.
I was just going to go through the lineup a little bit. But
that's kind of where I'm headed to is Klingberg.
Yeah.
So we had talked on our show about the idea that this guy is hurt and potentially weirdly, some people had talked about this being sort of a long-term thing. I think you had mentioned that.
Listen, we never saw anything of significant. There was no moment for Klingberg, but now you're hearing, a while ago, about Sheldon Keefe talking about something that's that needs to be looked after. And listen.
But then he played.
Yeah, I know.
He plays the next day after we talked about that.
Yeah.
And then now they fly to Sweden and he can't even practice.
Well, it doesn't necessarily point to anything of significance for me anyways.
What doesn't? That he's not practice skating?
No, that there's anything like definitive.
Okay.
Right? Like a separated shoulder or a sprained knee or anything.
Yeah.
But something is obviously bothering him. And when you're dealing with Klingberg and, the last 10 years, this guy has had a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, he's had double hip surgery and he's had, I think, a hand issue where surgery needed to rebuild a few things. So is it something that's bothering him? Is there something that is nagging him that he needs off days to have it settle down and play here and there? That's what it sounds to me like, that he's got something going right now that can drop the percentages from being 80 or 90% good enough to maybe 65, 70, and that's what's maybe going on here.
But it is a scary thought if you're the Leafs that you have this guy that you're already worried about his ability to perform, who is dealing with something that could hamper him throughout the season. The fact that he can't even practice, to me, is a real concern. So, I don't know. We do have a quote from Keefe, clip 2 on John Klingberg. Let's hear what Sheldon has to say.
Yeah, I just wasn't ready to go today. They think there's a chance he could be on the ice on Friday. But of course, I would say his chances of playing on Friday, I would put that at low right now, just given the fact that he hasn't skated since the game the other night. We were hoping to use this time, with a gap in between to give him some more time to heal, but also have some aggressive treatment with him to really help. And just wasn't feeling right to get on the ice today. I don't think the long flight did him any favors coming over here either.
Well,
Needs aggressive treatment. And by the way, it's always worse when it's non-contact injury, right?
Yeah,
when we didn't see a moment. So he's got a non-contact treatment that needs aggressive. What? Sorry.
no, I was just going to say, and
Yeah.
when you're dealing with a 6-8 hour flight, swelling, a lot of issues could kind of show up the moment the plane lands.
Yeah.
So
I just think that this is a long-term problem for the Leafs this season.
Listen,
this is more commentary than right now. This is a problem for this season.
Again, if he came in with a history here of having double hip surgery, I mean, that you needed to factor that in on whether or not you still wanted to take a chance on a guy and sign him to over $4 million, albeit 1 year. Maybe the best thing that they did out of this is not commit 2 or 3 years to a guy who's battling right now.
Yeah.
Like, good news, it's only a 1 year deal.
Yeah.
Bad news, it's still $4.1 million on your cap this year.
God, I mean, how nice would that be to have for them, while looking to figure out their back end? I am curious to see, because if it becomes a long-term problem where they can't use him, maybe he is an LTIR guy.
Oh, that if this doesn't clear up, and it is a contributing factor on why he hasn't been able to kind of get it going here, that's where it has to end up.
Yeah. And for Klingberg, it probably gives him some justification for how it hasn't gone great. If he wants to get major treatment or another surgery or whatever it may be, and next summer.
And the one thing I want to stress here, whether it's
Is that
Klingberg,
I have no idea what's going on?
Sorry?
That I have no idea what's going on.
No,
It's all speculation.
That whether it's Klingberg, and I did Calgary radio this morning, and they're saying,
Georgie?
Yeah, I did Georgie today.
Oh, yeah. The man.
On Sportsnet 960 in Calgary, and the suggestion was, could Jonathan Huberdeau end up, being a guy that can be on long-term IR if they nudge, wink that.
There's 7 years left, 8 years left.
Listen, regardless of what it is, you need to be a willing participant to go for that.
Right.
And even for Klingberg now, to have the Leafs convince him, listen, you're only at 70%. Can you please go on long-term IR? And by chance,
The best thing for you is how you have to sell it.
I don't know how, and when you'll ever, you'll come back. Like, the guy's got to go for it. And this is a guy that is trying real hard to get his career back on track here.
Yeah.
And he'll never get the $50 million he turned down in Dallas. But
You just need to Men in Black stick that out of your brain. Bzz,
Right.
That ever happened.
But can I
You
get
need to move
$10
on.
million back? Can I get $12 million back?
Yeah.
You can if you're playing. You can if you're
Healthy.
healthy enough to stay in the lineup.
He's only 31.
You gotta be willing to go on long-term IR. And the one guy that was willing was Matt Murray. and we've never really talked about the Matt Murray situation here.
No, we haven't.
In
Not
Toronto
once this season.
But you think about this for a second. Matt Murray
Where is he?
was cleared
In playoffs. He was on the bench.
in playoffs, available, right?
Yep.
And then miraculously, he's not available and he's on long-term IR.
What happened there?
Well, I'll tell you what happened.
Thanks.
He weighed his options, right?
Yeah.
He weighed out his options. Okay. Is there another team out there? Can I convince another team to start the season? Yes, no, maybe so.
I'd rather not get bought out.
If I go to the minors, can I come back? What happens if I get lit up in the minors? Your point, if I get bought out, what's it going to cost me?
I mean, $1.5 million?
More.
Almost $2 million?
Yeah.
This is what,
Yeah,
2/3
maybe
of your
more.
salary over?
Maybe
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
And that's not, and please don't get the wrong idea here when I'm telling you that, like, there's nothing wrong with him. The guy's been around for a while.
Yeah, he's
not
got lots
35,
wrong with him physically.
but physically, there is, much like Klingberg now, there is real wear and tear.
Yeah.
And if a guy doesn't want to play at 75 or 80%, then he doesn't have to. And if he chooses to fix something that could be easily fixed in 2 or 3 years from now, but I just choose to do it now, then that's his prerogative, and he's not wrong.
And then he'll come out of it. He's 29 years old in Matt Murray's case, where
But
he can
this was
say,
not-
my career's not
This
over
was
now.
this is not on the Leafs begging Matt Murray to go on long-term IR. This was Matt Murray going,
Yeah.
okay, I'll go get the surgery now.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are, if Matt Murray, who was cleared to play in the playoffs, found his way back in the lineup, did really well, and put himself in a position to carry on his career, there's a chance that his surgery that he had on his hip this summer could have waited a tad.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, yeah, these
that's
are
fascinating
decisions.
stuff.
You see people make these sort of decisions now and be forced into making them at
Yeah.
different times in their career.
But there is real wear and tear on all these guys. It's just
I've
a
said this
matter
to
of
people all the time.
where you prioritize it, where you put it, and whether or not you think that the break could be the best thing for you.
It's like Marian Hossa's skin condition, which I'm sure he had while he played. He didn't just show up when he was going to start earning, the least amount in his career and whatever. I think it's a real thing. It's a problem, and you can manage it.
Yeah.
But if you'd like to not, it's very easy to point to this and say,
Yeah.
here's a real thing I'm dealing with. I'd rather not deal with it anymore.
So one guy who's now been linked to the Toronto Maple Leafs is Pat Kane.
Wow.
Pat Kane had the surgery, right?
The
The
hips,
hip
yeah.
surgery. He had issues throughout the last season and a half, 2 seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Could have shut it down easily beginning of last season. At any point, he chose to play. And why doesn't he? Why wouldn't he? Right? He's still a very good hockey player.
Mm-hmm.
Wants to try to win the Stanley Cup, maybe get Chicago an asset, goes to New York, doesn't bold well. There's a guy that should have, in my opinion, and I went on record, don't get traded. Don't go to the New York Rangers. Go get your surgery. Get ready for this year.
Yeah.
It's happened now. As we know, he's skating in Toronto and getting close, hopefully picking a team soon. But there's a guy that actually it could have helped him going on long-term IR sooner than how long he waited.
Is there a snowball's chance?
I was going to say, is he looking to make $6 to play?
Yeah, is there a
Hockey?
snowball chance in an oven that he would want to play for the Toronto Maple Leafs, or the Toronto Maple Leafs would want him to play for them?
Highly unlikely.
Yeah.
And I know there was a report about the possibility of the Leafs talking to Pat Kane, and if there was, I think it right now my guesstimate is that it would have just been a formality. We're reaching out to teams, gauge your interest. But guys,
what are you looking for?
where is Pat Kane on the priority list for the Toronto Maple Leafs? Because I got it just right above getting Carlton the Bear a manicure.
Yeah, it sounds about right. I mean, you went to him and you
I
said,
agree. I honestly not sure I can think of anything the Leafs need less than Patrick Kane.
a one-way offensive forward who needs the puck a lot and plays the flank on the power play. Like, where do you put that? Unless you basically said, well, you take Max Domi's money and roll. I don't know, like, in which case.
You can't do that. You can't have a plan and then chuck it out the window.
No, I'm not saying I
15
think
games
it's a
in
good
with Max
plan.
Domi.
I actually think it's a bad plan.
Yeah, exactly. But there's not a chance.
No.
There's not a chance. Okay, as we promised,
Yes.
2 Hall of Famers on our show today. And one of them is someone that I know quite well, and I'm going to be real excited to talk to him.
All right.
Out of Stockholm, Sweden right now. Let's bring in Hall of Famer, great Leaf leader, franchise leader, Mats Sundin. Wade, what's going on?
What's going on, guys? Who's the other Hall of Famer? Is it you, Kyper?
That's the Hall of Shame, Mats. We got Ken Hitchcock in the second hour who just got inducted.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So what is happening in your country right now? Is it true that Willie Nylander went there and said, we are more popular than ABBA? Is that true?
I haven't heard that one yet, but it's great for the hockey fans in Stockholm and Sweden. I think to get a chance to see some of the best players in the world. You know, the best hockey league making its way over here in the middle of the season. You know, it's not easy if you think for the players and everybody around the teams traveling all the way over here with the jet lag and playing a few games and then back. So, but for the fans in Sweden and Finland, it's going to be some great crowds, and I'm sure for the Swedish players, maybe Finnish players on these teams, obviously it's nice to come home for a few days and play some games in front of their families and friends.
Mats, we appreciate you joining us today. I'm curious, how close would the general Swedish hockey watching public pay to, Nylander and the other Swedish stars that are in the NHL as the season is going on? I know there's a league there that I'm sure they pay close attention to as well. Are they able to keep ties or keep eyes on their stars in the NHL?
Yeah, it's been so long since me and Kyper played in the National Hockey League, and today you can follow the National Hockey League pretty much almost the same way that fans do in North America. Obviously, there's a time change, but you can watch all the different NHL games on the TV nowadays or on your computer. The players, the kids growing up in Sweden, if you look back to when I grew up, obviously it was impossible to follow the National Hockey League and you watched the national team, you watched the Swedish league. But now kids in Sweden and in not only in Canada and in the US, kids in Europe actually have their biggest stars they look up to are in North America, whether they're Swedish, Canadian, American, or wherever they are from the world. So, with the globalization and internet and being able to follow that. So very much so, hockey fans in Europe are following the best league in the world, the National Hockey League.
Mats, we know the link between Sweden and the National Hockey League, and president of the NHL alumni, Glenn Healy, is over there now. There's such a great group of you now all together. Lidstrom, great names like Alfredsson, Forsberg. But there seems to be a special connection between Sweden and the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that, of course, was because of Börje Salming and how it's made it extra special for you in your career, and maybe what it's doing for Willie Nylander today as well. But it really all started with the great one, as we know, as Börje Salming, correct?
Yeah, I agree with you, Nick. And what Börje did for European players and obviously for Swedish players, showing the league, the National Hockey League, the general managers over there, the fans, who I think, you look back to the 70s and 80s, very skeptical of bringing European players over to play a different kind of hockey than the one that's being played in Europe. But Borje really showed by the way he played that, listen, we Swedish players and European players can become impact players. So my generation, I know I talked to Niklas Lidström yesterday about it. He really paved the way for all of us that came after him, and we're all very grateful what Borje did. And I watched the premiere of a movie that's going to be out on Viaplay over here, and it's a fantastic piece that with Borje's ex-wife and everything. So I hope you guys get a chance to watch that. But he catches the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 70s and what Borje did coming over to Canada.
Before I let JB back in, anything in particular you saw that you didn't know or what you appreciated most about the film?
Well, I think me and you know, Kyper, how tough he was and the beating he took. But there's one part when Borje is playing for the Swedish champions, Brynäs, which is a 2-hour drive north of Stockholm, small town, but him and his brother Stig, and his older brother Stig was really a tough player here. But there's one part in the movie that is fantastic. When Borje, when he's young, he was late to practice a few times, and he gets on the ice, and he's upset at Stig because they lived together when Borje came to Gävle to play. Stig didn't wake him up. He was sick of Borje being late and not waking up in time. So Borje is late to practice, step on the ice, practice is going on. Coach, all of a sudden, all the players are rushing over. There's Borje and his brother Stig fist fighting in the, in the corner. They're in practice, and they actually have that in the movie, and they break them up. The coach is yelling at them. They have to do a few laps, and then they start practicing again, and a few months later, they're back fighting on the ice, throwing bombs at each other. I talked to Stig after the show of the movie. Yes, I said, Stig, are you serious? Were you guys that crazy in practice? And he goes, yeah, we were pretty crazy, said Mats, But they've done a fantastic job with the casting of the players, the Daryl Sittlers and all the players, the area of that Maple Leafs in the 70s. So, and it's also a little bit of sadness you watch it because we know that Borje was here not long ago, and unfortunately he wasn't able to watch the finishing of the movie. When they started the production, he was healthy, and he didn't have a chance to see it when it was complete.
Well, part of what made him beloved in Toronto was that he had that, physicality. He was willing to be involved in that aspect of the game, and that's something Toronto Maple Leaf fans love in their players. Over the years here, you've had the ability to watch, the recent frustration of this Leafs team of being very good and unable to get over the hump. I wanted to get the sense of if it's changed at all, the way that the fans interact and treat the Maple Leafs in terms of that expectation, or if it always felt that heavy and that desperate to get over the hump and win here.
Well, I think, if your fan base been waiting since, 1967, and if you look at the era, the Doug Gilmour, before I became a Maple Leaf, that went to the conference finals, they were close getting into the finals. We were in the conference finals twice, made a few more runs into the second round. But of course, it builds up a fan base that really want to win a Stanley Cup, like many of the other clubs are doing, sooner or later, right? But if you look at the team today, I think with the age group that the Toronto Maple Leafs have, you don't want to say it, but you have to say that time is on their side, right? And if they had a few more rounds going into the playoffs, learning, the drive and the fire should be building every time they get beat out in the playoffs, and they try to reach that goal. So, I think there's great hopes even this season or the next 3 to 5 seasons, they're going to have good enough teams to be able to contend.
We're joined by Maple Leaf great Mats Sundin, Hall of Famer, as the Toronto Maple Leafs get set to drop the puck against the Detroit Red Wings on Friday. Mats, on occasion when we were all together, Ty would drag us out to Vic Village to watch Max play for the Don Mills Flyers. I didn't get quite the reception you did, of course, when you walked into that rink. But is it kind of fun knowing that Max will be playing for the Toronto Maple Leafs in Sweden? Did you ever see that one coming?
No, I didn't see that one coming. But it's obviously great to see him. Like you said, Nick, he was in our dressing room. When I played for the Toronto Maple Leafs, he came out on the ice after our practices with Ty and shooting pucks and hanging around. And it's been nice to follow him since, age 8 or 9, playing as a kid in Toronto. And I think he will add things to the lineup for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and especially as the season close in on the playoffs and eventually the playoff starts. He is the type of player that you look back at the last few years. He's been having really strong playoffs, and he's not afraid of going into traffic and being a hard-nosed player. So I think it's going to be a good asset for the Maple Leafs as the season goes on.
There were some times we'd be in a restaurant and Max Ty would have us line up like we're dropping a puck in the restaurant.
What do you mean?
Well, we'd go over like formations off of a face-off in the restaurant. It's like Ty's like, get that salad tray out of here for a second. Hey, any Ty sightings over there?
No, he's not here. He's going somewhere else. He's got some business meeting, I think, in LA or something. He doesn't have time to come over.
It looks like there is a good amount of I guess, famous former NHLers. Does it seem like everyone's in town? Who's around there these days to watch this global series?
Well, I think it's great to see. I mean, pretty much, all the representatives from the NHL, the league and the industry, the PAs here, NHL alumni are taking a chance to meet some of the former Swedish players. So we have a little meeting tomorrow with the Nicholas Lidström, myself. We're going to try to gather a lot of players. And I think Glenn Hila has done a fantastic job, not only reaching out in Canada and North America, but also former players helping out, whether it's some need help with healthcare or family issues and stuff. And I think a lot of European players don't know the possibilities that is with the NHL alumni. Obviously, all the teams are coming in with their staff and all that. So I think it's great for Stockholm and for hockey in Sweden to see what hockey at the highest level is. So I think it's going to help Swedish grassroots hockey in the long run as well. So well done for the league making it all the way over, because it's a big job to come over here for a week with everything.
Mats, just one question on Sweden, and there's a few people that are going, okay, why do we need to grow the game in Sweden when we've got almost 100 players in the league already from Sweden and Finland? But there is still room and growth for sure, and I'm just wondering, is there ever a day you envision, I don't know, the NHL in Europe or a team in Stockholm making the trips, for road trips? Do you ever see that in our lifetime coming?
Yeah, obviously it's a question for Gary Bettman, I think. But if you ask me like this, is there a market for teams in 5 or 6 cities in Europe to play at the highest level? Is there enough support from owners and stuff? I would say yes. Is the hockey interest enough in maybe Helsinki, Stockholm, Zurich, London, Paris, and Germany probably would be able to support a couple of teams. I think that's there, but Nick, as you know, when you play in the National Hockey League as a hockey player, what you do is you play, you eat, you travel, you fly around North America, and it's a lot of long travels already from LA, Vancouver, Seattle now to the East Coast. So I think the technique of the airlines and travel, I think, might have to get a little further, and with the time change and everything. But in terms of the cities in Europe and being able to fill arenas and enough hockey fans, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But it's a long flight with time change and everything. But we'll see in the future.
So I noticed that Daniel Alfredson is taking a larger role with the Ottawa Senators. Do you ever get leaned on by people or think about getting involved in the hockey side, maybe possibly with the Toronto Maple Leafs at some point?
Don't you have a big meeting with the coaches to tell them what to do?
I'll leave that for you guys. You guys are watching.
We know everything.
No, well, we'll see what happens. I mean, we're actually, I have 3 young children now living in just outside Stockholm here. We're 10 minutes outside the city, and my kids, I have a daughter who's 11. I have 2 boys, 9 and 6. I'm at the rink now with my young boys. They're playing hockey. Our daughter's playing basketball. So I think life is pretty good right now. And I know the commitment it takes, that management. I mean, we've seen coaches, Nick, over the years, and management, it's a 24/7 job, but some sort of a relationship with, and I have a good relationship today with the Maple Leafs in terms of, but nothing to do really with the hockey side of it, but other things. So we'll see what happens in the future. I'll be in Toronto for the All-Star game in February. I'm looking forward to that. It's always nice to come home. My second home is Toronto, and I think we'll leave the kids at home in Sweden for that one. I'll just go with my wife.
Hey, and you don't want to mess with that golf swing that looks like Ernie Els is smooth as a criminal, as you always used to say.
It used to be.
Hey, listen, Mats, so appreciate your time on our show. It's going to be a fantastic weekend. Soak it all in. Enjoy it, pal.
Well, see you guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, Mats.
That's Mats Sundin, Hall of Famer.
Sure.
Toronto Maple Leaf legend.
11, 9, and 6. Kind of tough to be like, I'm going to go live in a different continent, kids. I get it.
Oh, you really get it.
I get it.
Love the question.
But I, you do hear in his voice that he's like, not done.
No.
Yeah. Interesting to hear his take on, at the end of the day, Sweden's a smaller country, 6-8 million people. I mean, that's, if it's going to grow anywhere, if there's a shot anywhere, I mean, I think he said it, the money, the engine out of Europe has to be like Germany.
I think, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's where the real cash is.
And they're an up-and-coming hockey sort of.
Well, right now you got Seider, Stützle, Draisaitl.
They're a little sleeping giant now with hockey, that they're starting to have some guys cross over, and that's what you need to get guys more interested, people more interested.
We didn't have Germany in our last World Cup,
we had to have
did we?
Team North America.
Yeah, that's where it was like, that's where it gets, like, if you're going to have a World Cup, maybe you got to have Germany. I don't care.
Yeah.
If you think that there's not enough to NHLers out of it, but you just have to have them.
Yes. Yeah, let them lose, but they get to play in the event.
That was awesome, boys.
That was really good.
That's my hero.
Were you a Mats guy growing up?
By far my favorite athlete.
It's funny because he took a bit of a hard time, right?
Well, at the end, when the Leafs were kind of stinking, and he was asked to waive his no trade Kyper, if you remember correctly.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, he didn't want to do it.
He wanted to stay in Toronto.
He was like, I love being a Leaf.
Yeah.
But then
he's so loyal.
But then what everyone got pissed off about was that after that, he signed with Vancouver the next year. Where it's like, well, if you were going to go somewhere else. Anyways. But then it was just like a whole uprising, like it was like borderline anti-Mats, and it was just always drove me nuts.
Yeah.
But the trade, the reason I think the trade was like, if I want to remember correctly, there was something to do with Jeff Carter or like a first round, like something. Remember that, Kip? Do you remember what the trade was? There was like a rumored
they had
trade.
something on the table with was it LA at that point or Philly?
I think it was Philly.
Carter was still a Flyer, if I remember
was
correctly.
Was that the Caberlet one? Anyways, there was like a big trade that was rumored at that time, and it got out that he wouldn't waive, and people got bent into shape. But like that guy's just was heart and soul. Like he never was, the raw leader, but he just scored so many big goals for the Leafs, and he
led by example. He's the first guy to go out there and play hard, and
God, I love them.
So much respect for him.
That's the reason. That's the reason I go backhand every single time I play hockey. It's the best.
Did we play a John Klingberg clip?
Let's hit a break and then come back and talk more.
You heard my producer.
Yeah, thank you.
He's the boss.
No, I'm not. But I just keep her between the lines here, boys.
Yeah. And Derek Brandeo says we should go to break too. Okay, more Real Kyper and Bourne Leaf edition after these words. We're back. Toronto Maple Leaf edition. Real Kyper and Bourne show. What are you all giggles about?
Because Derek and
the Brandeo, we're back.
you're just like
I just repeated what he
we're
said.
back.
But I've never really done this before, ever.
Well, you've done it for 3 years now, so
Yeah, but it's
you have
still
experience. now.
always feel like it's my first time. I'll never feel comfortable in this chair.
Dude, if anyone ever heard the actual first times we
Oh my
did
God.
this, they would take us right off the air.
I think I want to stop
I
talking
think there's
about
still
it.
a chance they will.
I hope not, man.
I don't want to, at the risk of
let's
having
move
someone
on.
dig it up, I don't want to talk about
Let's
it.
move
Just Klingberg, just to put a bow on Klingberg.
Yeah.
Because we kind of got cut off there talking with Matt when he came on. What do you think the chances of him, like the LTIR situation? Like, what's the Leafs LTIR situation? Like, can they still keep hammering guys on there?
Yeah, they're up against it, guys.
Yeah.
They're just up against it. If you want to talk Zadorov, if you want to talk Tanev, if you want to talk Hanifin, you got money out to bring money in, and you have to make room. And I don't know, there's probably a lot of Leaf fans out there that would gladly like to take the 4.1 off the books on Klingberg. To answer your question, it's just way too early. Too early to tell. He's going to want to come back and play again. Now, if he's
Do you know what the total is you can put on LTIR?
I don't, but I
I'm trying to Google
believe
it
the
right now.
Leafs are close to the limit, but they do have Timmins and Liljegren on it who will come off.
if he comes back and doesn't feel like he can perform at the level that he should based on whatever's bothering him, then he's got to weigh in with the Leafs what the best alternative is, and it could be long-term injury reserve.
All right, is Timmins back at least? Can he fill in for him?
Timmins is close. You want to go to Sheldon
Yeah.
We have
on
something on that? Great.
Connor Timmins.
Clip 3.
See, now he's not listening to me.
Maybe no.
At this point,
Okay, hurt
I'm
his
told
feelings.
unlikely for Friday, but we'll see. We'll see what the next couple of days bring. And I haven't talked to the trainers or anything since today's practice. Today's practice was an important one for him, but going into today, we basically were setting it up as though we're preparing for Friday's game, which was to have Timmins out. But he is getting closer for sure.
Timmins' preseason was Bobby Orr-esque.
He was amazing.
Which got everybody excited.
I think he had 6 points in 2 games or something.
People were pretty horned up about Timmins off the
Yeah.
start.
Yeah. So
He had 14 points in
I
25
think there's
last year for
a
the Leafs.
there
But
is
you
a
watched those games, Justin.
I did,
Yeah.
my friend. I remember.
there is a curiosity to see like what returns.
Yeah.
Is it this guy with some upside? Can he fill the void of Klingberg's game that was expected?
Yeah, the problem is Klingberg never fit as a logically unless he was going to run power play 1, and you're not going to ask Timmins to do that over Morgan Riley. So
Oh no, he's going to get power play time.
Timmins,
Yes.
not over Morgan. Maybe
I don't know.
PP2,
No,
yeah.
I think there's a chance if he comes back and he feels good and looks good, he will get a chance to maybe start a couple of power plays.
No way.
Oh, I'm telling you, this guy's this is his game. This is his game. His upside in the offense is his game. I'm not saying that it could you throw him to the wolves right away, but he could see significant time here. And like, I think if you made the commitment to try Klingberg, then you'd be crazy not to try Timmins coming off of his training camp where he looked good. And I get it. It's training camp. Nobody really cares. This is the real stuff. But beggars can't be choosers right now.
We called Eric Gustafsson poor man's Klingberg.
Oh my
but
God,
Eric Gustafsson's like unbelievable for the Rangers this year.
Oh,
so
the Ranger fans are all
they love him.
calling up this show going,
I know.
you guys crapped all over him.
Oh,
and
yeah.
now
he's making 800 and he's unbelievable there. But maybe Timmins can be poor man's Gustafsson.
I just think from
Is that right?
I don't know.
Whatever.
It's weird saying. I think the Timmins aspect is just to have another guy that you can mix in,
Yeah.
right? Like maybe if you need to give somebody
A
a
guy
night
who's
off.
not Max Lajoie.
Yes.
No
A
disrespect
guy-
to
yeah,
Max,
no.
but
a guy
but
not an
that can-
established
a guy can
NHLer.
you
play.
also want to put him in a position to succeed, and his strengths are that he had upside offensively.
For sure.
So you can't tell me that he won't see any power play time.
No, I can see him running the second unit or something.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Or if it's off of a change where Morgan's just coming off, he can start one.
All right. That would be hey, listen, Klingberg hasn't worked. Let's try something else. I'm in favor of that sort of thing. We also go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say we also have Sheldon weighing in today on where they're at. They just won a couple games. They're actually tied with Detroit going into this game on Friday. If he's had time to take a look now that they've separated themselves a little bit from the day-to-day rigors of the season.
Yeah, he was asked, like, hey, there's 3 games in 12 days. You have a chance to, like, look at the standings or whatever. And this is how he answered that. If we get clip, was it 5?
Yeah, 5.
No more than the general curiosity you have to follow along what's going on in the league. It was quite interesting. I woke up this morning and checked the scores, and there was games still going on. So I'm not used to that, but yeah, I mean, it is strange. It breaks up the rhythm that you've really gotten into with the way the league works. Basically, every second day, we're trying to use that to our advantage. Coming over here has its challenges, of course, because of the time changes and managing all of that. But it does give us a chance to have more practice time, spend more time together as a group. We want to turn it into being a benefit to us, of course.
So,
okay, not to get off topic a little bit with Pittsburgh. We're going to talk about Pittsburgh. We'll talk about Washington in our second hour here on Real Kyper and Bourne. But, like, the East is tight, boys.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
really tight. And the Leafs are right in the middle of it all. They ain't the Bruins right now.
They can go either way.
It was supposed to be the Leafs where the Bruins are and the Bruins down where the Leafs are. That's not what we're looking at today.
I know we'll save the other division for the NHL hour, but I'm sorry. The Capitals are 7-2-1 in their last 10?
yeah, they all of a sudden are a good team.
Did not see that coming.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh, I saw them rallying. But anyway, yes, this Boston Bruins team continues to win.
Yeah.
Florida Panthers have won 5 straight games. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. So yeah, it's these games against Detroit for Toronto are meaningful.
Last Friday we were talking about the importance of Calgary and Vancouver and Ottawa Friday or Detroit, sorry, Friday.
Yeah.
Minnesota on Sunday. These are 3 points.
The one advantage
They need
the
3
Leafs
out of
have,
4.
yeah, the one advantage they have over there is both teams they play are on a back-to-back. So when they get Detroit's played the night before, and they'll be rested. And when they get, is it Minnesota the next game?
Yeah.
Minnesota plays at like 5 p.m. the night before, then has to play them at 2 p.m. So
You think that was brought up in their negotiation if we're going to go over there?
got to set us up to win.
We're not doing the back-to-back thing.
Yeah.
Give that to Detroit.
Yeah. I don't know, but they definitely has the advantageous schedule over there.
I will say, from a fan perspective for the team, everybody made fun of the regular season not mattering. Regular season is back.
Yeah. Well, hey, this division's tight.
Like
Tampa Bay 6-6-4. They're going to get better.
It really does feel like it could go either way very quickly.
Yeah.
Right?
Hot run of games, bad run of games. All of a sudden, you're
Tampa's not.
big movement.
So maybe that's why some teams want the 3-on-3 fixed. That's a big point.
Those are massive points. All right.
To
the NHL hour we go.
Ken Hitchcock,
Yeah.
Hall of Famer. We can introduce him for the first time on our show like that.
That's right. What an honor.
All right. Anything else you want to discuss in the second hour?
There's a lot of stuff I could put on the lineup here.
Oh, my goodness.
Would you like me to? Okay. Sabres.
Sid.
Brendan Gallagher crying about the officials. Sidney Crosby. Canucks lose Connor Soucy for 6 to 8 weeks. Kyle Connor 3 points as the Jets down the Devils. Tied with Austin Matthew for the league leading goals.
All right. We better get
good.
to break.
Thank you.
Or else Sammy's going to call me out to the officials here. Does it feel cooler in here now?
No, it's hotter.
No, it's going up.
What is...
I don't know. Maintenance guy's on his way.
All right, we're back. National Hour next. Welcome into the National Hour on the Real Kyper and Bourne Show. We are live on Sportsnet and Sportsnet 650 in Vancouver and Sportsnet 960 in Calgary. And this hour, always but always, brought to you by Bet365. Plenty to get into around the National Hockey League. And in a few minutes, we'll welcome in one of the newest inductees to the Hockey Hall of Fame, Ken Hitchcock, who sits fourth in winningest coaches in NHL history. And, of course, part of the Stanley Cup team with the Dallas Stars.
Yes, sir.
I don't know. Where do you want to go first?
Well, before we get to Hitch, do you want to talk about last night in the NHL at all? Want to talk about Brendan Gallagher or the Sabres or Sid?
You know what? I think for me personally, the two teams that have just put a stamp on, sometimes I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, is the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Washington Capitals.
Great place to start.
Because those are teams that were trending, and I'll go back to last year as well, towards, hey, you guys got to kind of blow it up a little bit here.
See, I've been a Team Pittsburgh guy, but they started looking old and slow, and they couldn't make it click.
As the Washington Capitals have.
And the Caps now 7-2-1 in the last 10. The Penguins have won 5 straight. I mean, those teams are once again in the top half of the Metro and positioned in a pretty good spot here. They got the standings up here, like a real TV show. Love it.
Holy production value. Frank the Tank up there.
I got invited to an alumni event just prior to the season starting in Washington, and they still got some great pieces, but you were just wondering if it was catching up. Now, the most interesting aspect of even the Washington Capitals for me off the start is that this is happening with Alexander Ovechkin with all but a couple of goals. Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken,
he's doubled his total. He's up to 4.
He's up to 4.
Yep.
Okay.
One of them was an empty netter
which is what, a 25, 30 goal pace?
Yeah, he tied Wayne Gretzky all time for empty netters.
So we're not going to see the huge numbers apparently off of Ovechkin, and like at his age, 30's not bad. It's would it be deemed as a complete failure in your mind by the hockey world that a guy in his late 30s would bring down his totals from what we're accustomed to seeing in the 50s down to 30?
No, but it does change some of the conversation a lot of people like our boy DA have been having, where it's like, yeah, if he's got 50 last year, if he only gets 40 this year, or, you know, you start to see that tail, the scoring tail at the end of careers. But, you know, how much does it thin out from there?
But you're still in the ballpark of 2+ years.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's going to get there in all likelihood. I mean, it seems very attainable now, but it is interesting that you mentioned they're having success without him, but also their team goal differential is -2. Like, they don't look like a loaded team to me that's going to be a threat throughout the season, so I'm not really sure how to
do you know who's
chalk up the streak.
Do you know who is tied for second in all-time empty net goals? Marian Hossa. Second to all time. Yeah. Surprised
well,
at that.
Here's the thing. I was actually going to say when you mentioned that about Gretzky, Hossa, you could put on the ice.
Yeah. Same with
block shots, steal pucks, one of the best defensive players. Like, you've never thought Ovi. Like, it's been like he'll shoot it in the net for us.
I think he had one last night too, and
2 of his 4 this year are empties.
But last night he had a shot at an empty net goal too.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah, they're gonna every single time there is an empty net. You better believe.
And the other thing is, quick check for me quickly where Washington's power play is, because it's not pretty. I don't think it's pretty.
All right, see what we do. Stats. Teams,
which again,
power play. The Capitals' power play is I'm going way down. Last in the league.
Okay,
7.3%.
I didn't know it was that.
7.3.
I didn't know it was that ugly.
7.3, last in the league.
Yeah. So that's really surprising for a team that's bumped up in the last 2 weeks.
Shocking
that it hasn't happened with Ovi's scoring or getting on a hot streak and the power play.
Wow.
Okay, as promised, one of the newest members of the Hockey Hall of Fame joining us now, one of the winningest coaches in NHL history. Let's welcome in Ken Hitchcock. Hitch, you caught your breath since the weekend?
Nick, I was okay through the weekend until we went to sign the book. And then standing on the riser behind me were a lot of the players that I coached in the NHL and on the Olympic teams and stuff. So that's kind of where I I lost it a little bit when I saw all the guys there. And that's why if you ever look at my signature, it's the worst looking signature you've ever seen in your life. It's got so many shaky moments in it. So
Is Hitch, is it as full circle of a moment or a weekend as you can ever get? And is it possible to absorb it all?
well, first of all, going to Toronto, guys, is I haven't been around the game, visually for a long time, and it's such an intense market, and there's so much going on hockey wise. It's a little bit overwhelming, but I'm really humbled by this. Like this is a long way from running ice on an outdoor rink or coaching midget hockey. This is so far from that, and I was able to share this. We had a great family dinner with close friends, and then the Stars and Blues put on a function together, which was terrific. And that to me is the highlight. I got to share this with a lot of my family, and then a lot of my close friends from when I coached and was in the league, to be honest with you.
I mean, I imagine, and maybe I'm wrong here, but have you had a moment when you've been alone, you've just been like brushing your teeth and been like, Hall of Fame? Like it's an incredible accomplishment, Ken.
I thanks, Justin. For me, it's when Lanny told me in the summer that I was going in. It's the first time. We're guilty of never looking back. We don't live in the past as coaches. We're either in today or moving forward. It's the first time I kind of had a pause and reflect of, this is what happened in my career, and it's given me a chance to pause and reflect and think about some things that happened, because you're so busy looking for tomorrow or looking for ideas for today that you don't spend any time reflecting. But this has really given me that opportunity to pause and reflect, quite frankly.
Earlier this week, Hitch, we had Claude Julien on, and they were playing the music in the background because I was still talking to him. And, and you've been on this show before, and I do appreciate our conversations because, I was an idiot, Hitch, in my career, because sometimes I'd look at the coach and just say, shut up and open the door, and let Messier out and let all those stars out. And the longer you're out of the game and the longer you watch and you study line changes or when particular players are out at any particular time or how you need to drop into a forecheck, you appreciate it so much more. But today to coach, today to hit your levels or Claude's levels on wins is got to be much more challenging for coaches today. And we just saw Jay Woodcroft, and he was an up-and-comer and, looked like he had a bright future. But the pressure over the first dozen games is incredible, Hitch. I'm just wondering, will we see anybody hit those levels of wins like you and Claude ever again?
You know what, Nick? I think it's really hard being a long-term coach in the league now. I think we've become – the National Hockey League has become a little bit like the English Premier League soccer program, 3 and you're done. And I think it's really hard to become a long-term coach because opinions by the players and by people in the game are so strong they can overwhelm a coach. And, I looked at I've mentored Jay for 5 years now, and I think he's a wonderful coach. I think he does a great job. But when things start to unravel and then the stories come, is he going to last? Is he going to be able to make it? That becomes overwhelming. So the story does you in more than the actual facts do you in. It wouldn't surprise me that the Edmonton Oilers go on a tear here, because they were looking like they were coming out of it, even though they weren't winning games. And when you've gone through this adversity and you come out of it, you know what it's like. You can win forever. And I think the same thing happened to a team like Washington. They had to change their style. Now they check like crazy. They're checking, and their numbers over the puck are incredible. They're hard to play against. And I think once you get in that mode, you can win forever. But it's going through that process that costs a lot of coaches their jobs, quite frankly.
You know, when you do take over a team, so Woodcroft is out and they looked like a team that was about ready to turn it around. You know, what are some of the challenges? I asked Julian this as well, but just, you know, I think it's interesting to get different perspectives on the challenges for a new coach. Like Chris Knobloch taking over an Edmonton Oilers team where, you know, can you change systems at this point? Can you change lineups? What does he have at his disposal now that he's taking over what has been a recently successful team?
Well, I've experienced this before quite a bit. And to me, number one is that you better partner up with your leaders right away.
Yeah.
That's really, really important because they're the guys that are going to be your guide, and they're going to be the people that if they buy in, the rest of the team's going to buy in. To try to get it and involve the whole group is impossible. So if you think you're going to coach 23 guys into this, it doesn't work that way. You've got to coach 4 or 5 guys, get them to buy in a really solid foundation, and the rest of the guys will follow. And I think that's critical. Sometimes we get too involved in coaching too many people. And I get it that we instruct 23, but we really coach those first 5, those leaders that are responsible for the direction of the team. And that's got to be the partnership. And you've got to include them in everything, all the decisions, all the framework, any changes in systems. You got to get them to buy in before you can expect the group to come along with, you know, for the ride. But I really found over time that if I can convince my leaders and my best players to check, I've got a real chance to turn the thing around quickly.
From the 2023 Hall of Fame class, we are joined by Ken Hitchcock, the 4th winningest coach in NHL history. Hitch, one of the easy things to do in Edmonton is just point the finger at the goalies, and at the end of the day, say that Jay Woodcroft was goalied. You know, I'm asking you, out of your 1,598 career games coached in the NHL, how many times were you goalied?
You know where we were goalied, Nick, is not because our guys were good, but we were playing unbelievable hockey in St. Louis, and we lost to Crawford again, and then to Quick. And we had a chance to really make a run on cups, but those guys, those 2 guys were incredible. I don't know that we got out goalied. Our guys were strong, but those guys were incredible. And we were talking about it over the weekend here. We lost to Los Angeles, and we outshot them 42-14 in the decisive game. And Jonathan Quick was incredible, and that's what you need. And I went through it. I had Eddie Belfour, and we went on a 4-year run with Eddie where he was our best player by a mile. And when you've got a goaltender that can dominate that way, it's like gold. And when you look at Adin Hill and the way he played, I mean, he saved some games, and I think that's critical. It's not that you can really go on an extended winning program and win championships if you've got great goaltending. Good goaltending gets you a little bit of the distance, but great goaltending takes you all the way.
Ken, when you look at the coaches around the NHL today, are there any in particular that you admire? And why would that be, if there's any that stand out to you?
I don't want to get so much into names, guys, because there are some people that I'm really impressed with. But I can tell you right now, the coaches that get their teams to dive into the checking part of the game, not just playing defense. That's easy to just play defense. You can mirror people. Yeah. But the teams get their players to play through people. I'm really impressed with. You look at the job that Dave Hackstall did last year, and that team checked right through you. You look at some of the teams that are, like, if you look at the teams right now that are on top of the heap, they all check really well. And I think that's the sign of a coach, because that's a very hard thing to get your team to do, to check. And you see the ones that are having success. I think there's a reason is that the coach is demanding it and the players are following the line.
I'm going to throw 3 teams out at you, Hitch. Boston, the Rangers, and Dallas. Will exclude the Stanley Cup champion Vegas out of this. What's been most impressive in any of these three teams?
Well, first of all, Nick, for me, Boston has a great spirit, and that that team has defined leadership. I know, you're worried when you lose Krejci and you lose Bergeron, but they've got a defined leadership, and they're going to be around all the time because you can see their leaders are their best players. Their leaders are leading in the right direction. They're in really good shape. For me, Dallas, same thing's happening. Like they are in a situation, quite frankly, that they could go on long, long runs here because they're veteran players. Even as they get longer or older in age, they're still more than competable, or they got a group that you can really compete with, and they've got all these younger players that are coming on. So to me, they could go on extended runs here for quite a few years. And the Rangers are learning how to play the game. I think Lavi's done a great job there. The Rangers got numbers over the puck. They're not chasing from behind, and they're hard to play against because they can play extended minutes tied and beat you at the end with their skill, or they can have a 1-goal lead and really carry it for a period and a half or 2 periods and do a great job with it. The Rangers are learning how to play winning hockey, and you can really see it coming forward right now.
Yeah. You've mentioned a couple of times now leaders. And so when you coach your group, you're coaching 4 or 5 guys. You see the importance in those guys. What is the difference when you have vocal leaders versus leaders who just lead by the way they play? We had Mats Sundin on earlier today, and Kip was talking about how he was a guy who just kind of went out and did what he did, right? Because he led that way. What is the difference to a team when you have these different types of personalities that are leading your team?
I think that's one of the big changes in the games, guys. When Nick was playing and stuff like that, you'd had quiet guys that would just come and play and show the way. I don't think you can do that now. I think the leadership has to be vocal. I think because there's so many tugs and pulls on the players away from the rink, around the rink, a lot of people involved in their lives other than just you as coaches. I think you need real vocal leadership if you're going to be successful in the league now. And I think that vocal leadership has to be up front with your best players. And I think when you look at the teams that are having success, their top players, their captains, their leaders are really vocal. And I think that's the only way you can have success now in the NHL.
Okay, Hitch, I want to take you back, in your reflection mode as a coach and looking back at your career. And we had earlier this year to start one of the most bizarre dismissals of a head coach in Mike Babcock in Columbus. And I'm not asking you to comment on that necessarily. But what I am asking you is, over your weekend, when you look back at your career, do you sit there at times and reflect on some of the things you said and did over your career where just today, it's much different? And is there a part of you that says, I'm sure glad I'm not maybe starting my career today because I played for Keenan, there's others. I caught a little bit of Pat Burns. You guys set a tone. You set a bar. You either hit it or you get out of the way. And I'm just wondering if that came into play in terms of your reflection this weekend.
Yeah, it did, Nick. And that's why I said it in my speech. I'm in awe of the players. I'm in awe of the level of sacrifice necessary to win in the National Hockey League. And I was really a fan of the players. I couldn't show that when I coached. At least I didn't think I could show it anyways, but I was really a fan of the players. And I wanted to tell them all, and I tried to anyways on the speech, that how much I appreciated their effort, their commitment, and their sacrifice. But I think now, when I look back on it, and you look at the coaches now, you got to be really careful. You got to be really selective, because there are so many other factors that influence the players now. And you got to be really smart at the way you handle it. I think the biggest change for me, Nick, is that when I coached, you provided or at times demanded a direction that you wanted to go, and you just took the players there. And I think now you've got to sell it ahead of time and get a buy-in ahead of time before you even start down the path. I think that's the biggest change in coaching. And you've got to be able to present a case that there's going to be success with it before you can even start soliciting a buy-in.
Well, here in Toronto last year, there's an issue where Keefe, called out one of his players. He apologized the next day. We talk about it all the time here because it was kind of a weird event. Where do you fall on dealing with stars and discipline now? Because, there are some times I'm sure you'd like to staple a guy to a bench. I don't know if it's harder now or just how that relationship has changed, I imagine, impacts coach's ability to really dole out discipline and ice time today.
I think that's where you got to really be smart. I think if you're going to be critical, it has to be a we critical, not a them or an I critical. I think if you're going to criticize your team because you didn't like the way they played, you got to use the word we all the time and not single out people. And when there's success, I think that's good to single out people if they've had great accomplishment during the game or they played really well. I think you're well within your line to single that out. But boy, when you're criticizing, everything has to be a we, and you can't get pointed because it grows legs. I remember when I was in Edmonton and I made a comment about there was a time that there were some shifts with some of the younger players where we kind of dumped it in the neutral zone and changed or turned it over in the neutral zone and changed. And that drove me crazy. And I pointed it out. And that story grew legs for a month. And that was a real eye-opener for me because in the past, people would have moved on, but they weren't. So I think you got to be really careful. And I think you got to really be able to keep it at the we and not get pointed because I think that story will be there and it'll stay with you and it'll be part of your lore. And you don't want that to be part of your lore.
Hitch, I got to ask you for our Sportsnet 960 listeners in Calgary, Jonathan Huberdeau, who is struggling immensely. How would a Ken Hitchcock maybe 20 years ago handle Jonathan, or maybe a Ken Hitchcock today handle Jonathan? Because he scored 115 points not too long ago, and now he looks like a 50 or 60 point guy. Like, how would you get Jonathan going here?
Well, I've had a lot of that before, and I use the same method. You either trust the player or you don't trust the player. And if you trust the player, then you got to put him out there in situations where he feels like you have confidence in him. And that means that you've got to take risks and put him out there against top players or in critical situations. First of all, not talk about scoring, not talk about points, but talk about game-like situations where you trust this guy, put him out there where it really matters. Give him that confidence that he can play against top players, and then let his skill take over after a while. Because his skill, all of a sudden, he isn't going to wake up and start scoring 2 points a game. It's going to be a gradual process. But in the meantime, he's got to feel like you trust him. And being able to play against top players, putting him out in critical situations, start of games, end of periods, stuff like that is really, really important because the player's confidence will grow because he feels like you trust him. And then his natural skill will take over. I've always found that when you're working with players who have lost their confidence, they become very aloof on the ice. There's games where the saying you'd have is, "Boy, was he ever quiet?" And you've got to bring the noise, and the way to bring the noise is to put him out there when it really matters and see if he can grow from there.
Hitch, great stuff as always, man, on our show. We really appreciate your time. And once again, congratulations on your induction.
All right. Thanks a lot, gang.
Thanks, Hitch. Appreciate it.
Ken Hitchcock.
Thoughtful guy.
Do you think if do you think if Brett Hull's watching and listening, he's like, who was that guy?
Where was that? I was actually thinking of how I used to think about Ken Hitchcock when I used to watch the NHL, and he was kind of a hard-nosed, he would really wring the most out of guys. But it's interesting hearing what a thoughtful, he really thought a lot of this through. And that was just the way you coached then.
There's a great story that Reeves tells about Hitch. I don't know which podcast it's on, but he does a long story about Hitch getting mad at him and yelling at him. And it's hilarious, him doing the impression of Hitch.
Yeah.
It's incredible. But yeah, it's right. It's like See, as a hard-nosed guy, and then you hear him talk there. It was just like, that was his most insightful hockey conversation.
There's a method to the madness, right?
Yeah.
So every once in a while, we're all in New York, Keenan, telling stories. And then there'd be Brian Leach whispering in my ear, I don't remember it that way.
Yeah. That's all, hanging around my dad and his buddies. There's a lot of, I'm not sure it went down quite like that.
Don't let the truth get in the way of a good
That's
story,
exactly
pal.
right.
It's all good. It's all good. As long as you win at the end.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
He's a lot of guys, much like Keenan, at the end of the day, he can't take away the fact that guy just pushed enough buttons to help you become a champion.
Win and
you
win.
can never take that away from hard asses like that in that era.
Yeah. And you know what? He's still a guy that, does consulting for NHL coaching staffs in St. Louis, I think most recently. And, he's very in tune with today's era of hockey player.
All right, game time, baby.
All right. It's game time presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus. Ontario only. Please play responsibly. Now, I think today is a good game time, boys.
What do you
Well, I got the Oilers again.
got? Yeah.
I think I'm going to ride the Oilers here for a while. I'm going again. The horses lead the way. Connor McDavid goal, Leon goal, and the Oilers minus a goal and a half pays plus 575.
Cash last time, right?
It did. It wasn't a minus a goal and a half, but the last time I went with it, it did cash. So going back to the well, I just feel like they're going to light it up again.
And going against a team where I don't know where they're heading, Seattle,
They're heading.
right?
Way
Like,
down.
You kind of won me over a little bit, JB, on just overachieving last year.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots to like about their defensive play, and they can goaltend and all that sort of stuff. But to me, you just can't bank on, solid play from solid players. You need to have some elite guys, and they just don't.
Well,
to me.
and at the end of the day, like, Schwartz is a good player, Eberle is a good player, but they're not frontline guys.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
So
You love your
those
team.
are
if they're
all
on your
complimentary
third
guys.
line.
What do they
Yeah.
have? They got really a lot of mileage last year out of maybe 3 third line type of.
Yeah, like Matty Beniers had a
Players.
good rookie season,
Yeah.
but his rookie season was
Oh, he's-
56 points or something.
Can't put the puck in the net.
Has he got one yet?
Sammy, what's Matty have?
He has
Jared,
a number, which is 1.
Ugh.
Minus 15 in 16 games, 1 goal, 6 assists, 7
minus
points.
15.
And he
Yeah.
was looking for
The
a
bag.
long term. He thought he'd be one of those guys, and
Like it's
Why
the
wouldn't
Jack
you?
Hughes
Rookie-
deal.
rookie of the year. Why wouldn't you try to lock me up now for 8?
Yeah. But, second line listed right now is Jaden Schwartz, Alexander Wenberg, and Brandon Tanev. Okay. Fine players.
The next thing I have here on game time is Bo Horvat returns to Vancouver tonight.
Yes.
And boy, there's just been a lot of conjecture in that market. I mean, I
Are
follow
they
a ton
booing
of
him or not tonight?
but that's a hot button conversation in Vancouver.
Yeah.
Is like I follow a ton of Vancouver people very in that scene on Twitter, and they are very bent out of shape about this. I mean, would you boo him? Whatever.
How do you boo a
but
guy whose team wouldn't pay him?
For the
So-
the revenge factor tonight is a Bo Horvat goal, and the Islanders winning is plus 375. I would imagine that nice shiny contract that he would put some of that on the board tonight. I would imagine.
Oh, I imagine he's putting up a couple.
There's a couple
$1,000
shekels up
going
there.
tonight, yeah.
So I don't love the
I'd love to
Islanders,
see that
but
I did not see at this point back then
Yeah.
that JT Miller being the hot guy in the league and Bo Horvat
no way,
struggling.
right?
Yeah.
I just
It's flipped.
never saw that coming. And just now think about the fan base in Vancouver and what a great feeling knowing that our team's going this way
Yeah.
and the Islanders are going down.
I know Horvat said a salty thing or two on the way out the door, but it seemed primarily about the fact that the
Yeah.
team didn't value
Yeah.
the 9 years he put in on
Yeah.
losing teams being like their only horse.
The captain of a crappy team for a
Yeah.
long time.
So I to me, he was a good Vancouver Canuck and should be supported. But hey, as you've said, people pay their money. They're fans. If they're upset at him, do your thing.
If I'm going there wearing my skate jersey tonight, I'm definitely booing.
Boo Horvat.
No, I think I give him the standing O at the start, and then the second that puck drops, baby, boo every time he touches the puck. That's how you handle it. That's how you handle it. So a couple of more quick things here. started checking in on odds to make the playoffs. And the reason I bring this up is because I find this very fascinating.
Is this leading into the segment we want to do, which is called "Are They Good or Do They Suck?"
That's my dream segment.
Yeah, we'll get to it.
We'll get to it someday.
We just need to sell Kyper.
The Oilers are minus 175 to make the playoffs.
Whoa!
So pretty prohibitive favorites.
I think they're going to make the playoffs.
And last time I checked, they had single-digit points. Let me just double-check that. Yeah, still single-digit point, 9 points.
Wow.
That's I know they're really good, but it's a big,
in the
it's
NHL
a
in
big
points.
time uphill climb.
Hitch made an interesting point that they may have already started it even before they got rid of Jay Woodcroft in Seattle.
Yeah. It's just crazy you can't even get value on it
No,
now. They're
plus
so
145
far
to
back.
miss.
Wow.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, he did mention that this is probably going in that direction. And God, they just dug the hole so
That's what I
deep.
mean.
You know?
I do not recommend that bet.
Not a 175, no.
Skinner has looked great since Jack Campbell's left.
Yeah.
Right? And Jack's, 12 goals in 2 games?
Yeah, apparently he let in a 60-foot slapper last night.
I mean, he's a guy whose performance has hinged on his mental state, and it can't be great in the American League.
And a couple other.
I hope he
figures it out.
Yeah,
Me too.
I really do.
Totally rooting for him.
And a couple other ones for the playoff odds, just quickly before we go. Books are believing in the Penguins, minus 175 to make the playoffs, but not the Capitals, plus 185 to make the playoffs. So they're a pretty heavy underdog to make the playoffs, and the Penguins are a pretty heavy favorite to make it.
Yeah.
So
the books know what they're
did
doing.
they get faster?
7% power play for Washington.
When
We didn't get
Backstrom left, did they get faster?
I don't know, maybe.
Weird one.
Hey, 7%.
Strome scored a nice goal last night.
Yeah,
too.
he's been good.
He's been really good.
All right. That was Game Time, presented by Bet365. Visit the app for the latest odds and find out why it's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 19 plus, Ontario only. Please play responsibly.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here. And then we're back. We'll discuss a little Brendan Gallagher last night calling out the officials. Oh.
He was right to, Sammy. It's a right.
Sammy, save it. Save it.
Do I need to call you a wambulance?
More of the Sammy crying after the break. Do you guys think at some point, like Sid, either this summer or training camp or at the beginning of the year, said, time out with Austin and Connor here? Because I'm not going anywhere.
I do think that this year that Sid is starting to have is how you end up with freakish end of career numbers. Like right when everyone's being like, okay, now it's time for you to pack it in. Sid is at 19 points in 13 games.
He's going to be one that when he's done, it's going to make me really sad. Because he's like next to Mats, he's my favorite hockey player ever. I love Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, we got
Obviously,
him.
there's a you know that jersey. He gave me a pretty great moment at a really good time in my life when he scored that goal. That was pretty enjoyable.
That was pretty special.
He's the
Just
most
play forever, Sid.
He
Please.
is the most complete hockey player in the league, and Connor's not there, and neither is Austin. Neither is Jack Hughes. None of them. He is the most complete. No shortcuts. Does everything the right way. No cheating.
Yeah. I mean, that was Patrice Bergeron, only Sid was doing it plus 30 points on him, right? I mean, the numbers are pretty baffling. Yeah, he's plus 19 points right there, but he's between Matthews and Draisaitl on the leaderboard.
Watching him last night, he's just a pain too. Like he's got to the point where he's got the leeway with the refs, where he gets away with a ton. He's hacking, whacking, like he cares so much. It's just like, God, you can't teach that.
And again, if you're going to score, the whole idea is that you do more of the scoring and less of the shoveling the puck out of your own net.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Connor's failed and Austin's failed for the Leafs this year.
Yeah.
Okay. Austin's up there with the total goals, but I'm a big plus minus guy until it's not a factor, but this is a factor. Successful teams with their stars are now plus.
Yeah.
Look at Vancouver. Go look at JT Miller. Look at Pettersson. Go look at Hughes. Like you cannot saw off your goals. And Sid and Carlson, I think, Malkin, I think.
Matthews is a plus player, Kyper.
He's
What is
plus
what
one.
is what is Matthews?
Marner's minus one.
What
he's
is
plus
Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander total? Plus minus.
What am I, a mathlete? I don't know.
You can give it to me in 2 seconds. What are they? Plus.
I can give you 3 of them.
Plus 1.
Right now, they're even between Nylander, Matthews, and Marner.
Yeah.
So let's find out what Tavares is at.
I bet you he's minus. Maybe
There he
minus
is,
one.
-2. So as a
Okay.
group, they're -2, but combined.
As a group, they're -2.
Yeah.
Now go to Pitt. Give me anybody.
Sid's plus 8. It's not.
Right?
He's plus 8.
Okay.
This is the on-air SAT today.
No, I'm just. This is how you're. Hitch said it. Hitch said it.
Yes.
Claude Julien says it.
Win your minutes.
Your important players, your best players, have to be a lot more in that end and a lot less in your own end.
For sure. The Marner Matthews group has been struggling this year, and blame it on the left winger. The coach has talked about how it's the two of them. Quietly here, Marner doesn't have a point in 3 straight games, which is unheard of for him.
So, I look at Sid's numbers here, and he's up to 1,521 points in 1,204 games. Probably going to get to 1,000 assists this year. He's at 961. It's incredible, but you wonder where he would be without that 2-year sort of injury in and out of the lineup.
Yeah, his concussions
in the neck, and it was really scary there for a while about him playing. Remember there was is he going to be able to come back?
I had real concerns at one point. I actually, interesting you mentioned his total career numbers. I had a friend mention to me.
He's in if he has 2 more full seasons, he's in gaudy territory.
Well,
right now, it's really good.
The second NHL player ever to hit 2,000 points. What's he, 500 away?
He is, he's under 500 points away.
So 400 and some points away. If he's
I just don't know if you can keep him that interested for 5 more years.
And it may be more than 5 years. He's not going to get to 100 every year.
I don't see him sticking around or babysitting. And listen, I mean, Kyle Dubas went really all in. On this, right?
What choice do you have, right?
He's all in on Sid, and it's definitely enough to hold his attention right now. But I don't know what this team's going to look like in 18 months.
You think if they get bad, Sid will say, I'm still an NHL player and a very good one, but I'm just going to go back to Cole Harbor?
No, I see Sid shutting it down before. Well, yeah. Okay, I thought you might go somewhere else. I do see him shutting it down before ever going to another organization.
Yeah.
The only question is how long can Kyle Dubas keep him interested in thinking he has a chance to win? Because I don't see him as a babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's great.
Yeah, 479 points is a lot.
But if he had played 2 more years, let's give him 100 points in those 2 years that he would have played, right?
His numbers are going to be off the charts.
Because he played in 3 straight years, he went 41, 22, 36 games played.
Really? I didn't realize there's that many missed games.
So if it's 82, 80, 80, he's up in the 1,700 range, 1,800 range, and it's holy crap, this is a real thing.
Yeah.
But again, the model of consistency, because I don't think he's ever had a year where he had more than 120 points.
No, I don't think he has either.
He has had 1 year of 120 points.
Yeah.
One. And he's been over 100 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times.
So he just kind of gets a lot of points every year. But yeah, to your point, he's also. I think my defining Crosby memories will be. Well, we had obviously the golden goal.
Yeah, that was great.
The Ovechkin hat-trick game where they both had the hat-tricks, but also the battle with Giroux in one of those playoff series.
Yeah, when they beat him, and everyone's like, is Giroux the best player in the world? Remember that?
Yeah, but there was real nastiness between those two, and it was the competitiveness that stuck out to me.
Yeah, because he's like, what? Remember he asked him? He's like, because I don't like them. He hated them.
Yeah,
that was a good rivalry.
He's the only thing I wonder right now, Sid.
The only thing I wonder about Pittsburgh is between now and say the trade deadline. Where's Kyle? What next level can Kyle go to help this team, or is this has to be pretty much your Stanley Cup team? Because there's not much in the cupboards there, right?
No, but this is why I stuck with Pittsburgh when people were saying, "Oh, this Pittsburgh team's slow and no good," because. Dubas will be doing something. I know they're up against it and not a lot of assets. They'll do something.
They have next year's first and the following year's first. Let's say they don't have this year's first. They have 2025. They have 2026. They have this year's second. No second next year, and the second round after that. Little thing.
And this is still coming off of Jimmy Rutherford.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Where he spent. So I don't know where he can further deplete the organization to win now.
Yeah.
So that's another factor on where Pitt goes.
I've come to I don't know where other Leaf fans are on this, or I guess the Dubas hating Leaf fans. But watching the Penguins last night, I can't do it. I can't hate on Sid. Yeah, I have to root for the Penguins.
Really?
Yeah.
Overrules the Dubas.
Yeah, it
hate.
does. It does. It's just like I can't watch Sid and be like, I want this guy to lose.
Yeah.
Like I'm watching him karate chop it from below the goal line into the net. I'm like, God, he's so good. Like, he's amazing.
Patrick.
Just the redirects.
That's so sick.
It's like him and Pavelski around the net, basically 1-2.
Anyways, love you, Sid. Hope you're listening, bud.
He's not.
Okay, as we promised, Brendan Gallagher.
Oh yeah,
coming off a loss, where at least last night they thought they would take a crack at maybe getting a chance to tie it up. Which
Montreal getting frustrated here,
but
right?
He took a late penalty last night and had some choice words, didn't he?
Yeah, so was it Lindholm was behind the net? Whichever Flames player's behind the net. He's protecting the puck, and he backs into the back of the net and falls over while Gallagher's there. Gallagher gets the penalty. Old Brendan was not very happy about that.
Would you like to listen to him?
Oh, very much so.
All right, Derek, play the clip.
He can't make that mistake. It's obviously a real important part of the game. He's in the neutral zone. His partner's right there looking at it. He didn't have a penalty called. Their bench reacts, and he makes a reactionary call. It can't happen at this level, and he knows that.
Yeah,
reasonable.
I did see the play.
Super professional.
I saw the play, and it was the back official, the one that's on the goal line, who had probably a much closer, better angle than a center ice official, doesn't make the call.
Yeah.
That drives players nuts, doesn't it?
Oh, that makes people mental.
When you're like the guy looking right at it, and the guy that's 100 feet away is like,
yeah,
that drives them nuts.
That's tough. So, they lose to the Canucks on Sunday, lose to the Flames last night, partially on the back of a call there. They got the Golden Knights and the Bruins for their next 2 games. They're down to 500.
They already handled the Bruins once.
Yeah, true. But Montreal is starting to look more like what we thought. Not that they're bad. They're playing. They're competitive this year, but they're still going to be.
Josh Anderson
5-team,
had a grade A chance to tie the game. Markstrom pulls the big Bernie Perrant glove save.
Don't look now. Marking the Funky Bunch.
He doesn't have a goal yet. Josh Anderson.
He doesn't have a goal?
I don't think he has a goal.
Many goals enough to necessitate an entire stat column.
I think it's full goose egg.
It's because they haven't played the Leafs enough.
He does score against them.
But
Flames 5-8-2, Oilers 4-9-1. Here they come.
Yeah, he's got a bagel in 16 games.
I went my first 15 games as a fourth liner without my NHL goal.
Yeah.
And I was going
preoccupied with
bananas.
Yeah.
I can't imagine a guy making $5 million a year who has a much better reputation for scoring than I do now.
Think of
back then.
A guy who's had 28 in the league, Max Domi, is sitting here in Toronto with all the pressures of Toronto and his dad and all that, waiting for his first one. I'm sure it's on his mind a little bit.
I'm just looking at the goal totals for teams he's played against. He has 13 against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and next closest is 7.
Yeah.
Who's your first career goal against, Kyper?
Detroit. Sammy St. Laurent. Does that sound right?
No idea. You tell me. Sammy St. Laurent.
Gosh. I think it's Sammy. I haven't said that name in like 14 years.
Heard that name in 84 years.
Sam St. Laurent. Yeah, I mean, this picture, he's got the Jason Voorhees mask.
There he is.
There he is.
So I was at the Joe Louis, assisted by Alan May, his regular guest.
Yeah.
And the late Doug Wickenheiser, first pick overall of the Montreal Canadiens.
Good goal, lucky goal.
Great goal.
Oh, yeah?
Sid-like. I just chopped right in the blue paint, chopped it.
Redirect.
High glove.
What were we talking about? Don't let the facts get in the way of a good story.
Can't YouTube.
If you dig deep enough, you could find that video.
What did that feel like? Honestly. Like when you your first goal in the like you were just euphoric.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Just Christmas. That's what it felt like.
What's your favorite goal?
Patrick Waugh in Montreal for him.
Wow.
Ooh, that's a big deal.
High glove.
Yeah.
Wow.
Toe dragging it across the blue line.
Didn't die. That's great.
There was like 7 bodies in front of him, thank God. Or else he would have pulled it out like it was a muffin.
That's awesome.
I wish I could find that goal, but probably can't find that one either.
Nah, this is way before Sammy and the internet.
Yeah. So do you feel like our Canadian teams, the direction they're going, Flames and the Oilers, starting to get better?
Should we give Kyle Connor a little love here?
Yeah, we're actually due. You know what?
One of the best goal scorers so far in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, I sent you guys today a list of expected goals, just straight up expected goals from Stathletes. Number 1 in the NHL, Zach Hyman. Number 2 is Austin Matthews. And then it's all the players you would expect. But number 3 in the league is Kyle Connor. He has been the 3rd best forward at creating what should be goals.
Only 7 assists, though, Kippy.
Who's that?
Kyle Connor. Yeah.
But he not a centerman. Doesn't need to be addition magician. Center position has to have that element in his game.
But the reason I sent you guys that list was, shockingly, Nylander's 5th, but Tavares is 6th in expected goals. So the Leafs have a few guys up there.
Yeah, because he's shooting them from the front of the net.
Power,
in the power
play
Yeah.
doesn't hurt. Yeah.
But yeah, Jets are looking pretty good. That's a nice win over the Devils. Without Jack Hughes, I get, but their goaltending's left a little bit to be desired.
Devils
but,
flailing a little bit.
Yeah.
3 losses in a row, 7-6-1 for a team that I think a lot of us, myself included, had probably as favorites to win the Metro this year.
Yeah, but they don't have their best player, one of the best guys in the league. That's a huge loss.
It is, but other players like Toffoli. Toffoli might be -8, -10. They're digging pucks out of their own zone here.
Yeah, that's been a problem for them. The one thing I was going to mention for Canadian teams, the Canucks lose Connor Soucy, which I know does not sound like a big deal.
No, I think it's a big deal.
I do too.
I think it's one of those where sometimes you add a defenseman and it sets everyone else up.
It puts everyone where they're supposed to be.
When you take a guy out, it forces people to kind of get reslotted and not necessarily in a good way.
And yeah, the Canucks, obviously, I think they're 8-1-1 their last 10. They've been awesome, but yeah, that'll be a challenge for them to see. Their depth will be challenged with that absence.
If I'm Craig Conroy, I'm texting some media members being like, "Boy, they're really asking on Canucks are really asking on Zadorov. Drive that price up."
It appears that Tage Thompson, Mario Jr.
Yeah,
when he's
Tage
toe
Lemieux.
dragging, Tage Lemieux.
Boys, the Sabres. It's not happening for
it's
them
over.
here.
Maybe broken hand, suspected broken hand. So,
and he went out earlier in the game because Charlie McAvoy kicked him.
It was ugly.
Yeah.
So and I'm also watching like the lower bowl. Doesn't look like any fans are at the game.
This is the year they were supposed to turn it around.
Yes.
This is the one for me where it was like, okay, now you have all these tentpole pieces.
But I'm watching
7, 8, and 1.
Levi, the rookie.
Yeah, it's tough.
Coming out of college, can't be much more, 21 years of age. Hey, get us in the playoffs. Come on.
I think
Not
it's time for
that easy.
Adams to not just say, we're growing and we're getting better and you got to make some moves and get that team some help.
All right.
Shout out Kyle Ekpozo, 1,000 games in the NHL, former teammate of mine. Pretty awesome accomplishment.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good on him.
Less than 24 hours for puck drop in Sweden.
That's not true.
It's Wednesday.
We're still so far from hockey.
Just under 48 hours.
Tune in tomorrow when we have 11 guests.
Oh, my God. We got to do another show without a Leaf game?
I don't know. Let's make Sammy
Our
do it.
thanks to legend Mats Sundin and Hall of Famer Ken Hitchcock. We're back tomorrow.